Hi, listeners, and welcome to my first ever podcast, which I am titling The Future of Cruising for our topic today. My name is Alyssa, and I am a graduate student at University of Indianapolis. And today with me, I have two fellow travel professionals. And today we're going to be talking all about cruising. And I chose this topic because I do not consider myself an absolute expert in cruising. It is not my first preference for vacationing, although I do love a good cruise. But I want to learn a little bit more from these ladies about cruising and their experiences and maybe some of their clients' experiences as well, so that I can learn right along with the listeners as well. So whether you are a seasoned cruiser or you're just curious, you've come to the right place because we are travel professionals and we're here to talk about the good, the bad, the ugly, everything. So I'm ready to start. My name is Alyssa. My travel agency is called Jet Set Alley Travel, and I've been in the business for 2 years. My niche is actually Caribbean and Hawaii. And one of my bucket list places I'd like to visit in the next couple of years is Africa. That one's been a big one on my list. So I would love to hear a little bit more about you, Sydney.
Yeah, my name is Sydney Skellinger, and I have a travel agency called The Poodle Booked It. I happen to own a standard poodle who runs my life, so he has to run my agency as well. I have been a travel agent for over 5 years now, and I specialize in river cruises. So that's kind of what I love to sell. I do sell a lot of cruises in general, and I have been, I think, on over 50, which sounds awful that I've stopped counting. Um, and I think a bucket list item for me is I'm very excited. I'm gonna be doing the Mekong, so Cambodia and Vietnam. So that's gonna be really fun, and that's kind of on the top of my bucket list at the moment.
I love that. Vietnam is really close on my list too, like up there. I agree completely. All right, Cynthia, let's hear about you.
My name is Cynthia Conley. I own Travel Advisor Team. I've been in the industry a little over 14 years, and my bucket list item is the Galapagos Islands. I've
Mm,
never been there, and I really want to go.
yeah, same. That's a good one. Awesome. Thank you guys for your introductions. And I'm going to get right into it with some questions. We're going to be covering things like new technologies or amenities that we've been seeing in the cruising industry, or maybe everyone's opinions on why it appeals to certain age groups. And then hopefully we'll also get into a little bit of luxury versus budget cruising as well, some pros and cons, things that you've seen from your clients as well. So my first question is going to be, what are some of the newest innovations that you've seen in the cruising industry recently? So does anything come to mind right off the bat, Sydney?
Yeah, so there's different ways of looking at this. So when I think about the technologies, we also are very much focused on becoming more green as an industry. So you have a lot of new cruise lines that are very much focused on being like net zero or as close as they can, really making sure they're focusing on being sustainable in like buffet practices by not having them, or focused on the engines that they're using. A lot of the like smaller expedition cruise ships are very much focused on that. And to get to some ports these days, you have to be. So Norway, when you're when going to the fjords, like you have to have a special engine that is very eco-friendly so that we don't affect the environment. And then some of the things, and I know Cynthia has a ton of these, which is, things on board. I always think of like Virgin Voyages as the top of the list when it comes to technology on board. They've got the Shake for Champagne, which I use regularly when I'm on board those ships. And you can order almost anything on your app, which is very nice, like room service and things like that. So there is where it's really innovative, but I know Cynthia has a couple of other things that we were talking about beforehand.
Yeah,
Some of the things to pivot off what Sydney was saying, the LNG ships to go on the being more eco-friendly. So
mhm,
they're moving to that kind of fuel so that they can eliminate some of the emissions in the air, which
mhm.
we know we've seen some of that in the past. So they're trying to eliminate that, make it better for the environment. And on some of the innovation things, we talked about like Princess has the medallion.
Mm-hmm.
So the medallion is nice in that you can order drinks from that. You can open your cabin and you can order your drinks from wherever you want to be, and the drinks are going to show up to you versus you having to go to the bar. So some of those features are really nice.
Yeah, that's true. That is funny that we're talking about the different aspects of that question because you're right. Some of it is the way that we're being more environmentally friendly in order to even get to places like ports that we want to go to. And then also just the fun technological side of it. Like you said, the medallion, agree. I thought the medallion was really cool where I could order a drink anywhere in on the boat and they would find me wherever I was and say, Alyssa. And I'm like, well, that's pretty cool. Or to see your name pop up when you get to your stateroom saying, hello, Alyssa. And you're like, wow, that's pretty cool. I'm not going to lie. So there's the green side and the fun side. I like that question for that reason. It's very cool. So I think we can move on to my next question, which is why do you think cruises appeal to such a wide range of age groups? And how do cruise lines cater to these diverse demographics? I'd love to hear from Cynthia first, if she would like to share.
Sure. I think that the cruising appeals to everyone because it's an easy way to go on vacation.
Mhm.
And there's family travel, there's multi-gen, there's also honeymooners and singles and bachelor parties, bachelorette parties that do this. And it's kind of a one stop that you can go on vacation, drop all your stuff in one spot, and then
Mhm.
go enjoy the perks of the cruising. And they changed it a little bit more that we're seeing. They're offering more like haven type situations to make it more of a yacht club type experience,
Mhm.
or the retreat, on Celebrity. They're trying to make it where it's a more elevated cruise experience.
Mhm. Very much, yeah. Do you agree with that, Sydney?
I do. I think that also as an industry, you think that, I mean, I think when I first started when I was a kid, there was really only the mainstream lines. You had Carnival, you had Royal, you had NCL. That was really all you had.
Mhm.
And now we have so many different ways to travel on a ship, right? So we have a small expedition. We have sailboats that we can actually, you can just have one room on. There's river cruising. I can go to Antarctica. So I think that we have different things for different people. So, if it's a family, I'm going to go first towards like Disney and getting that sort of adventure and that sort of set sort of thing of what you're going to get and having those things on board.
Mhm.
Also, like what you're looking for a vacation. So, I know you do sand and sun, and so you're going to do the Caribbean, Mexico, Hawaii. You can do cruises there, so you can actually see multiple islands if that's what you're into.
Mhm.
But now you can do, Europe, you can do the northern, you can do northern Europe, you can do Mediterranean. They have some that go, they have the world cruises, right? The famous one from TikTok. You can do all seven continents. And I would love to do 135 days on a cruise ship. I think it'd be so fun. I don't know if my wallet could handle it, but that's why I think it kind of does to all of these things. And one of the things you talked about was solo travelers as well.
Mhm.
A lot more cruise lines are starting to do rooms specifically for travelers versus having it where they have to pay an additional fee.
Mhm.
So that's something that's nice that with so many new options and so many different cruise lines, we can, as travel agents, we learn about them all and
Mhm.
we can decide which is the best line for you and what you're looking for.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think another good point is the accessibility of it as well. I always notice the number of people who need wheelchair assistance on cruises and things like that. I think it's a great option for them to see many different destinations in one place where they always have someone to help them or offer them things that they're able to do. And I think that that's a big plus as well. And I think we may also get into that in another question I have down the line here. But here's another good question to kind of go along the flow of that. For travelers on a budget, how does a cruise offer good value compared to other vacation options? And then maybe we could also get into how luxury comes into that as well.
The cruising is a good option because, as I mentioned previously, that's a one stop shop. and that you can drop everything and go enjoy the entertainment on the ship. You don't have to worry about any extra charges. Like when you go to a theme park or somewhere, you're at the end of the day, you're going to have a bill for your food and any kind of extra entertainment you did
Mhm.
on the ship. It's going to include your meals, your basic beverages, and your entertainment. There's usually a couple of pools on board. There might be some water slides or a roller coaster that you can do while you're on the ship that can encompass the entertainment all in one spot.
Mm-hmm. Very true.
Yeah, to spin off that, I will, I guess, be the sales pitch for the higher end cruise lines.
Yeah, go
So,
for it.
yeah. We all start at certain levels of our cruise journey, and I have done the wide range of them. And I will say, when we're talking about the budget ships where you see those amazing prices to get on, you're like, it is $299 to get on. How can I say no? Um, and you do, as long as you understand what you're getting for that, right? So you're getting, your main dining room meals, you're this, and then you're getting waters and juices where they have them set up. So, you do have to pay for your alcohol program, you do have to pay for sodas, and those things, just like at Disneyland, it's a closed market, so it is expensive.
Mhm.
And so there are those things where they have those additional costs that you have to be mindful of when you're going on those. But it's an amazing experience. I've done them. I love myself a booze cruise for a weekend getaway.
Yeah.
But when you start going into the higher end or the larger ones, the smaller ships, and you're like, well, why am I paying 2 or 3 times more? And I'm going to be going to similar items. I'm still going to the Caribbean. What I kind of like to talk about there is that usually you're talking about smaller ships, so it'll be less than 1,000 people on board. A lot of them actually include alcohol on it as well, included in the price. They will have more options for food, or they'll actually spend more per person on food. The amount of staff per customer is more, so you don't have to wait in as many lines for drinks. Usually, they can go into those smaller destinations, so you're not just going to if you're going to the Bahamas, you're going to like 6 small islands there versus just going to the main stop where you got 8 cruise ships and 40,000 people that are getting off at one time.
Mhm.
You do have the what you take away from that. A lot of them are not going to have crazy pool setups. They're not going to have the surf rider. They're not going to have the water slides. So like you are going to get an older group that goes on those just because that's not what they're looking for anymore.
Mhm.
I really enjoy them, especially when I'm going to Europe. I don't I always usually recommend my favorite for Europe if you're looking for like a mid-range premium is going to be Azamara
Mhm.
because they focus on being in the destination. So like if they go to Ireland, they're spending 10 days and only doing Ireland. So you really get to be in a destination. You don't have to unpack more than once, which is a huge thing for me because I have a lot of stuff. Um, and and so those are those things that like when I look at the price points, it includes they have like a set alcohol menu that they include in it. So you have all of those sort of things. And when you do the math on if you do like that sort of stuff, if you want that extra food, the price in the end actually usually ends up being equal to that of those larger lines or very close. So when you're actually like putting all of the expenses together, it can be the same price.
Yeah,
Getting a
absolutely.
better value. I think you're getting a better
It,
value with
yep.
that because in the luxury lines, it's a more intimate experience, as you mentioned,
Mhm.
Sydney. And some of them, a couple of them advertise they have one chef for every three guests. So if you have any kind of dietary restrictions, that's really helpful because you know that your diet's going to be followed while you're on that trip. I was just on a cruise last week, and one of the clients on the cruise mentioned to me that she has dietary restrictions, but yet at night she was only offered one of three things to choose from for dinner.
Mm.
And, that's not a lot to choose from. And she was a little disappointed that she didn't have better choices. And so I talked to her about another cruise line that does have one chef for every three guests. And I think she'd be happier there.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's interesting how moving their budget out just a little bit more can be the difference between having a vacation where you had to eat the same thing, you didn't have a lot of options to, oh my gosh, the chef curated something special for me. It was the best meal ever. Definitely true. And at first, and Cynthia, you mentioned like getting that bill at the end of the cruise, and then Sydney talked about it too. It's interesting because that's what I love about luxury is that you're paying your price and you know what you're getting and you know what you're paying. Some of the budget cruises you go on and you're like, oh, this is budget. Then you get that bill at the end and you're like, oh my gosh, this is almost the same price as a luxury cruise where everything was included. So it's like you have to do that compare and contrast there and know your client or know yourself as a traveler to make that decision. So that's a great point to make. So I wanted to ask next, looking forward in the future of cruising in the next 5 to 10 years, have you noticed any like emerging trends or maybe even shifts in traveler preferences?
Um, I will say that there is a different shift in the market. So
Mhm.
you have two completely different thought processes. You have the mainstream cruise lines that are just going as big as possible, and we're trying to get the biggest, the best, and whatever. But I'm noticing with the more premium to luxury lines, we're actually going smaller.
Mhm.
We are very much focused on not creating the biggest ships, not trying to be this huge thing. We are focused on getting smaller, intimate, very much focused on the experience.
Mhm.
So I think that we are now basically classifying vacations in two separate things. The ship is the destination, or the destination is the destination. And
Mhm.
that is really what I'm seeing in the cruise marketplace. Because I will tell you, I've had FOMO to go on the Icon of the Seas. I think it would take me 3 weeks just to find out where everything is with all the neighborhoods they have.
Mhm.
But again, I'm not going to go to the Caribbean. I'm going to be on the ship. I'm
Mhm.
going for all the fun things they have on board, the ice cream, they have a dog, they have, they've got so many amazing things on all of these huge ships. The NCL has some amazing ones, Carnival does, and it just depends on what you're looking for.
Mhm.
Now, when I go to my premium and luxury lines, a lot of them are really focused on doing like 200 to 300 passengers max. They're really trying to focus on that intimate, curated, destinations where they're saying, we're gonna have these. Like I've been doing a lot of ones that are like chef focused, so they will do. We're gonna be in Croatia, and we're gonna have a Croatian chef on board, and you're gonna be able to go to a market with them, and you're gonna be able to do all of these things and really be one with the destination, which also I think is how they're getting more millennials and, the younger crowd because, when we think of millennials and, early Gen Zs and everything of that nature, we don't like to be on like the guided tours. We don't, a generalization is we don't want to be herded from one spot to another, but we really want to be in the culture. And
Mhm.
so that's how cruise lines are like trying to build that into it because in general we want to feel that we're experiencing the culture that we're going into without having to again unpack every day or transport from one place to another and get the mix of enjoying a vacation, learning about the culture, and really just having the foodie, the that intimate sort of experience on board.
Mhm.
That's at least what I'm seeing. Cynthia, what do you think as well? Did I take the whole answer?
No, you did great. I've also seen a trend where the Croatia yacht charters. I had a charter for this year, and the yacht held 18 cabins,
Mhm.
and so we only had 36 guests on board. So it was a very intimate experience. I was able to choose where I wanted the yacht, as I'll call it, to depart from and return. So I could choose Dubrovnik or I could choose Split to make the airfare more effective as price wise for the clients. So, and then we had a chef on board, and then we also got to stop at different places, the little nooks and crannies that a ship couldn't go into that this yacht could go into to have an experience. And then a lot of times they include, you can do like a European plan on the yachts. Yeah, I included breakfast and lunch, and then usually dinner. People like to go into the city and see what's there that they can go have dinner with the locals. So
Yeah.
that it makes it even more that you feel like you're part of the city and you're not sitting on a ship or a boat the whole time. And I'm seeing with like Sydney mentioned with the smaller ships, I just did a training seminar a couple of weeks ago, and a couple of the vendors really focused on all of the rooms are suites and they all include butlers. So
Mhm.
that gives you another element of that luxury cruise line. And those are on ships that hold anywhere between, I think the highest number was 775 people on one of the ships, and then they go down to 300 people, and that's one of the luxury cruise lines. So those are things people are looking for those because they sometimes they don't want to be around, as Sydney mentioned, the water slides and things like that. They just want to go and relax and have a, feel like you're at the Ritz-Carlton, which you could do a Ritz-Carlton yacht. Feel like you're at the Ritz-Carlton while you're on the water.
Yeah, I love that. Very good point. I love that. And to almost kind of go back to an area that we were talking a little bit about already, what are some of those lesser known destinations that cruises are starting to explore now? And how do you think that that enhances the overall experience for travelers and cruisers?
I love doing all the unique destinations. I'm
Hmm.
not gonna lie. Antarctica is very high on my list, as it is a lot of people's these days.
Yeah.
But even going further than that, there are a couple of river cruise companies that are going a little, doing some different things as well. So, like, we have some that'll do the Amazon.
Mm,
We have another one who is also starting this year on the Magdalena River in Colombia. So, not places you would normally think about, but definitely just these unique destinations that you can be in with that culture, right? So, you can be with the people, you can kind of learn about it, and you don't feel as if you're overbearing.
mm,
And I think that's really where I see like the luxury and premium lines going, is those unique destinations. Another one is like Greenland and going up that way. The Faroe Islands is another one that is high on my list. So those are just some unique destinations that aren't the first thing you think about, but are just absolutely gorgeous.
mhm.
And right now, as we're having, at least where I see it, we're having this like, return to travel times seven, where everyone's just like, I need to get out. I would recommend going to more of those unique destinations, those ones that might have been like six or seven down on your list. Like, let's not do Italy, let's not do this, let's go to some of those more different locations for the next couple of years. Just because since everyone is wanting to do it, you might be able to get a better experience there. Like I just did a whole thing on Albania, and Albania is a new destination that's pretty much, it's like Croatia was in like 2018 before it became the hot new destination that it is. And so you can go there. It's more affordable. You get to see the same beautiful like areas. It has the same sort of topography, but you don't have as many people. And so you get to kind of again enjoy the culture for what it is versus being, elbows to elbows as you would be if you went to Rome next year.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
definitely get more of that cultural experience when you're ahead of the game. And how cool is it when you come back from a destination and someone goes, I don't know where that is. And you're like, oh, great, let me tell you about it. And then in a couple years, when that destination is now the hot place, you're like, oh, yeah, I went there in 2024 and it was amazing. And you get to tell everyone all about it and be the expert on that destination. It's just awesome. So,
Yeah.
totally agree with you there. What about you, Cynthia? What is your experience and your outlook on these lesser known destinations?
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of people are interested in, like you said, the places that nobody knows about. They get tired of all the tourist trap type places. So, like every year, I talk to my best friend. I ask her, "Where do you want to go next year?" And we try to make it happen. And this year, she really wanted to go to Sardinia, Italy, which is kind of a new hot spot. And if
Mm,
you haven't checked out Sardinia, Italy, it is beautiful. It's a little island. It's gorgeous, and I actually booked a trip for us to go there this year. So we went there a couple months ago, and it was amazing. The water's crystal clear, and it's just incredible. You wouldn't even know it was there. It's just gorgeous. But I'm also seeing another hotspot coming up this year is Panama Canal
mm,
and Asia. I recently grabbed some group space for a trip to Japan for 2026, and I do see people planning way further in advance now for their trips.
yes.
And when I talked to the cruise line, they said that that itinerary was already 60% sold out, and this was
Wow.
about 2 months ago. So that's definitely a hot spot. So Panama Canal, Japan, Asia, Vietnam, as Sydney mentioned, some of those Thailand, also those are all getting a lot of attention. And
Mhm,
I've heard that our money goes very far over there, so
mhm.
that really helps with trying to plan your travel there.
Yeah, that has been a hot topic. I've been hearing a lot about Japan and how far your money can go. I've been hearing that one a lot too. So, good hot take. Awesome. Well, those were all the questions I had for you ladies. I want to thank you so much for coming on and doing this podcast with me and helping me learn a little bit more about cruising in the future. And hopefully our listeners enjoyed it as well. So thanks for being here, and hopefully we could do another one someday.
Thank you for inviting us.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.